So here about a week ago, we had a season-changing rain. And it wasn't necessarily the volume of rain and how that may or may not have had a significant impact on crops in certain geographies within CVA. It was the lessons that we learned due to that rain. And I think that no matter where you found yourself in our geography, those lessons are going to prove valuable for the remainder of the year. I'm Keith Byerly, Precision Ag Manager at Central Valley Ag, and this is your Precision Focus that corresponds with my article on the CVA blog site. So with this rain came an opportunity to take a break for many irrigators, but also came a learning opportunity. As Mike talked about earlier this week, when he discussed water infiltration with you, we had an opportunity from this rain to really learn some valuable lessons about what we're going on out in our fields. And the field that I'm going to highlight today shows that in somewhat of an extreme level. So Mike talked about most of our fields here in Nebraska having about a 2-inch per hour infiltration rate capability to them. And that's a great rule of thumb, but that rule can also vary quite differently. As we look at the field that I've got here today, what we see is that throughout the course of the season, we started off after a 3-inch rainfall and had great soil moisture. Very confident that the soil moisture probe indicated full accurately on this probe. But as we progressed through this field throughout the season, we just continued to lose ground and lose ground and lose ground. No matter how we irrigated or what interval we irrigated, we had a well that had a somewhat limited capability, and at the end of the day, we couldn't make ground back up. Then came this rainfall event. And what we see here on the second graph is that we have some serious issues and some serious enlightenment when it comes to infiltration on this field. While we had great infiltration rate at our 4 and 8-inch sensors almost immediately from this rain that occurred at about 2 in the morning, it was almost 2 full hours before we saw any infiltration at our 2-foot rate. For this soil being a little bit lighter textured soil, where we can hold about 1.5 inches of water per foot, we should have seen that happen much more rapidly. But then we look out at our 16-inch sensor. It was almost 22 hours before we could see water infiltration at 16 inches, and it was almost a full 36 hours before we saw water infiltration at 20. So we have a field that has some sub-levels happening here with different soil types and different compaction layers happening that have impacted our water infiltration. So what does that tell us? It tells us a lot about our field first and foremost and how we're going to have to manage it going forward. But here's my take home for today. It also tells us how we need to manage the remainder of this season. The idea that we're going to be able to get ahead on irrigation is out of the question. We're only going to gain ground on the total of the moisture profile from here on out if we get a rainfall event. So we need to irrigate accordingly. Our rainfalls need to be held in the top 8 inches of this field, and we need to irrigate with a frequency that corresponds with that, but also looking at the weather forecast to make sure that we can hold that rain. If we put these strategies into play that we learn from the lessons from a rainfall event, we'll have a more successful season and we'll end up spending less on water and being more economical and more profitable at the end of the season. And really at the end of the day, that's what we're after.